I never imagined I'd find love in the shower, but a simple mistake changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I stepped into the bathroom, steam curling around me, a haze that softened the edges of my life. I was overcome by an ordinary desire, warm water cascading over me, washing away the remnants of my day. But little did I know, this was no ordinary shower. The moment I turned on the faucet, the familiar clatter of water against the porcelain tub echoed, but it wasn't just the sound of droplets that enveloped me. Somewhere beneath the rhythm, a strange hum resonated, like a distant song that tugged at the edges of my heart. I remember pausing, feeling the water turn from cool to scalding hot, almost too much to bear. Yet, I melted into it, allowing it to consume me, and then it happened. I glanced down, my eyes widening in disbelief. A glimmer of something shone through the frosted glass of the shower door. It wasn't just soap scum, a flash of silver caught my attention. My breath hitched, a lump forming in my throat. What could it be? I had to see. I reached for the door, fingers trembling, a shiver creeping down my spine. As I pushed it open, the steam swirled around me, hiding whatever mystery awaited. But what struck me was not what lay behind the glass. It was the sudden silence that engulfed the world outside my pounding heart. I froze. In the corner, a silhouette loomed, washed in the surreal distortion of falling water. A figure. Who? Why were they there? My instincts screamed at me to run, but curiosity was a magnet. My eyes strained to adjust, and that was when I saw the details: the wild shock of hair, the glint of hazel eyes peeking through the curtain. My heart thundered as that figure stepped closer. Sorry. Wrong shower. They exclaimed, an awkward laugh bursting through the tension. But it wasn't just a laugh, it was a melody, disarming and inviting. My chest tightened. I felt a strange pull, the unexpected warmth wrapped around us in a world of steam and vulnerability. As they backed away, retreating into the mist, I caught a glimpse of their hidden pain, the flicker of loneliness in their smile. I wanted to reach out, to change the course of this strange moment. But then, just like that, they slipped away, disappearing into a space I had never thought to explore. My heart raced, heavier than before. Who were they? Why did it feel like fate had pushed me into this encounter? The silence roared, puncturing the fabric of my ordinary life. It was a simple mistake, but it felt monumental. What had I just stumbled upon? The unanswered questions twisted in my mind, igniting a spark of hope layered with confusion. I stood there, breathless, teetering on the edge of something incomprehensible, uncertain of how to step forward into this new reality. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days melded into each other after that surreal encounter, the crisp lines of reality blurring in the aftermath of the unexpected connection. I went about my routine as if nothing had transpired. Mornings began with a drowsy shuffle to the coffee pot, days were spent immersed in the relentless tide of work that felt increasingly hollow, and nights enveloped me in a blanket of silence that echoed with an emptiness I struggled to fill. The shower loomed there, a constant reminder of a moment that had unlocked something I didn't know existed within me, some spark of desire for more than the mundane. Each time I stepped in, I half expected to see that figure again, to be engulfed in the steam and carried away into the enchantment of the unknown. But only silence greeted me, the warmth of the water now tinged with a bitter longing. Thus, I drowned my thoughts beneath torrents of hot water, trying to wash the loneliness from my bones, the ache of yearning curling around my heart. One night, after another tedious day at the office, I stood at the edge of my bed, torn between the familiar embrace of my white comforter and the pull of the shower. As I wandered into the bathroom, the moonlight spilled through the window, casting a silvery glow that danced with the steam. But something shifted in the air that evening, a feeling that this night was destined for change. Still caught in the moment, I turned on the water, allowing the sound to serenade me as I prepared to lose myself in its embrace. Just as I stepped inside, a frantic knock echoed from the front door, jolting me back to reality. I hesitated, the water streaming down my back pulling me into a desire to forget everything and just embrace what was. But curiosity clawed at my insides. Would it be them? Heart racing, I wrapped a towel around me and dashed to the door, water droplets trailing behind me. When I opened it, I was met with a face that wasn't the one I'd envisioned. Instead, a tremor of panic washed over me. It was Sarah, my neighbor, her eyes wide with distress. Her usual vibrant spirit seemed dimmed, shadows lurking behind her irises, which sparkled with tears holding the weight of unsaid grief. "Can I come in?" she breathed, barely managing a nod before rushing past me, clutching her phone tightly in one hand. I need a moment. My sister," she stuttered, swallowing hard against a wave of sorrow. Her diagnosis came back. I can't even talk about it without breaking down. My heart sank at her words. I felt the weight of her hurt, an echo of the pain I had seen in that fleeting glance during my encounter by the shower. I led her to the living room, and we sank into an embrace that felt too heavy, yet comforting. It was raw vulnerability shared between us, her trauma, my aching heart longing for connection. "I thought I'd take her out for coffee tomorrow," she whispered, tears glimmering again. "But who am I kidding? It won't make it better." "Nothing will." After a few moments of silence layered with the sorrow swirling between us, I felt compelled to share my own turmoil, to let her know that amidst her pain, I too was grappling with uncertainty. I spoke about my strange encounter, the unanswered questions gnawing at my spirit, and how it had unveiled a deep-rooted yearning for connection that had long hibernated inside me. "I didn't realize how lonely I was until that moment," I confessed, feeling foolish under the weight of my own vulnerability. She nodded, her eyes meeting mine, each of us finding solace in shared hurt, a flicker of understanding igniting between us. "We're all just looking for someone. It's terrifying, isn't it?" Just as we began to find a semblance of comfort in each other's presence, my phone buzzed on the counter, breaking the spell. I glanced over, my heart leaping as I saw a name on the screen I hadn't expected, a text from the unknown figure from my showered. "I need to talk to you. Can we meet?" The message flashed like a beacon, stirring the flames of uncertainty in my heart. Before I could respond, a double wave of panic and thrill washed over me. Thoughts swirled me, neighbor's grieving face, the urgency tinged with hope from the text. Who was I to dive into this tangled web, to chase shadows while another person stood before me in anguish? "Everything okay?" Sarah's voice broke through my reverie, mirroring the worry creasing my brow. I hesitated, my heart caught between two worlds, the estrangement of loss and the promise of new beginnings. The moment felt suspended in time, charged with unspoken possibilities. Yet as I stood there grappling with my decision, a shattering realization cascaded over me. I needed to write my own story, to choose my path forward, regardless of how complicated it might become. "It'll just give me a moment," I mumbled, glued between the doorway of the known and the vastness of the unknown. Her gaze, weighted with empathy, bore into me, silently urging me to take the leap, and as I reached for my phone, the screen flickering under the dim light, my heart raced with a mix of dread and exhilaration, knowing that whatever I chose at that moment would ripple into the uncharted waters ahead. Would I dare step closer to the unknown, to unravel the layers of destiny laid before me? For now, I was still figuring out the puzzle of my existence, and in doing so, I would either find love or be lost in a labyrinth I never anticipated. The warmth of the room seemed a world away as my fingers hovered over the screen, the glow of the text illuminating my swirling thoughts. I could sense Sarah's gaze fixated on me, her quiet presence a reminder of the pain that had just poured out moments before. How could I leave her like this? The stark contrast of our situations, her impending loss, my unformed hope pressed heavily against my chest. As I stood there, oscillating between compassion and curiosity, I could hear the soft patter of rain beginning to fall outside, the sound merging with the dim hum of my thoughts. The vulnerability threaded through the air could not have been more palpable, almost as if the walls themselves bore witness to our raw authenticity. Do you want tea?" I asked, my voice suddenly uncertain. It felt like a feeble diversion amid a storm brewing within me. Sarah nodded, grateful and fragile, and I turned to the kettle, trying to regain my focus on anything but that trembling screen, but the moment that followed was one I wouldn't forget. I fought to fill the silence with chatter, awkwardly weaving between pleasantries and shared solace while I busied myself. Yet each clink of the spoon against the mug echoed louder than my thoughts. Have you ever found yourself trapped between two worlds? I asked suddenly, letting my curiosity seep through. Like, torn between the familiar and the unknown, her brow furrowed, and she took a moment, her fingers wrapped tightly around her cup. All the time, she finally admitted, a wistful smile creeping in, shadows still dancing in her eyes. Every day feels like that. You wake up and you want one thing, but life pulls you in another direction, then what do? I pressed, earnestness threading through my words. She chuckled softly, a sound tinged with heartache. You try to find a way to bring the two together. To weave the chaos into something that makes sense. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of the resilience behind her suffering. The knowledge that even amid pain, she was still grappling with the beauty of connection sparked something inside. Just then, my phone vibrated again, a reminder of the fluttering heart that existed in the shadows waiting for a chance to unfurl. This time, my courage faltered. The message read, "Is everything okay? You seem distant." I looked up to see Sarah watching me, wise and understanding. Perhaps my hesitation wasn't just about facing the unknown figure but also the fear of truly letting someone in, of allowing chaos to mix with comfort. Did you ever think about the what-ifs? I whispered, trembling slightly at my own question. Her gaze softened. Every day. But you have to make a choice. Fear is just another thorn in our side, isn't it? My heart raced at her response. She was echoing my thoughts back to me, a mirror for the fragmented reflection I had been examining. Yet just as a flicker of bravery ignited, the phone buzzed again. It was him. Outside, time froze. Panic coursed through me, spreading like wildfire. The thrill of anticipation turned to fear, and I looked at Sarah, her expression shifting, decoding my unease. Do you want me to stay, or? She asked softly, uncertainty lacing her question as she rocked slightly on the couch, fingers fidgeting around her cup. I thought of reaching out to embrace her pain, to share our burdens, but there was this magnetic pull of the other side, the pull of uncertainty that dangled before me, the person who had stirred something so raw and real. I don't know, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I want to face him or invite him into this chaos. Sometimes what we really want scares us the most, Sarah said, her voice steady and sure. But you need to listen to your heart. My heart thundered as I stepped into the hallway, the noise outside muffled by the door. Just then, the soft tap of rain began to transform into a downpour, a reminder of nature's relentless embrace, a sign that change was upon me. With trembling fingers, I reached for the doorknob, my heart racing toward the unknown. But a sudden sound halted me, a sharp intake of breath, an unwelcome shadow lurking at the edges of clarity. I turned back to Sarah, whose face had paled. She gripped the mug tightly, her eyes wide and filled with foreboding, and then I saw it, the door behind me, the shadow spilling from its threshold, shifted ever so slightly. An ominous knock echoed, a third presence in our fragile moment, and I felt a coldness creep in, washing over my resolve. Was this a destiny shift I had invited, or a threat lying in wait? Who is it? Sarah whispered, her courage waning. I turned, fingers tense against the doorframe, heart drumming as the weight of the unknown settled heavier than ever. A decision loomed, a moment that would shape everything to come. With a deep breath, I opened the door. The air outside smelled of rain, promise mixed with danger wafting into my home. It was time to step into the storm, for whether the figure was friend or foe, my life was about to shift irrevocably. All I could do was hope my heart was ready for the tempest ahead. The door creaked open, and as I stepped back to allow the world outside to enter, I braced myself for whatever awaited me in the downpour. He stood there, silhouetted against the gray backdrop of the rain-soaked street, his face distorted by the weather. You came, he said, his voice a blend of relief and something deeper, an urgency that tightened the air around us. Why are you here? I managed, trying to steady my own racing heart. Behind me, I could feel Sarah's presence, a silent witness to the flicker of emotions flashing across my face. She remained seated, frozen in place, her eyes darting between the two of us as if we were pieces on a chessboard, vulnerable and uncertain. "It's not safe to talk out here," he said, glancing over his shoulder as if shadows lingered just out of sight. "Can I come in?" I hesitated. The warmth of the room felt like a protective cocoon against the cold rainy night, but inviting him in would also mean inviting chaos deeper into my world. A weight settled in my chest, and the sound of Sarah's quiet breaths seemed to amplify the pressure in the air. "Please," he pressed, desperation threading through his voice. It took everything in me not to look back at Sarah. What would I say to her if I let him cross that threshold? Would I be dragging her into a tumultuous storm, without regard for what she had already lost? Before I could respond, she spoke up, her voice trembling yet resolute. "If he's a danger to you, I won't allow it." But if he's not, her words lingered in the air, urging me to consider my own feelings. I could sense the shift, the quiet courage in her tone igniting a spark of warmth in my own heart. With a resolve blooming beneath the surface, I opened the door wider. "Come in," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Rain poured in as he crossed the threshold, dripping onto the wooden floor, transforming the room with each droplet that fell. I could feel the shift, the heaviness of the moment blending with something unexpected and electric. He walked inside, a tempest of uncertainty trailing behind him. Closing the door against the storm, I turned and faced the unspoken questions hanging between us. "What do you want?" I asked, every pulsing vein in my body alive to the unknown. "Things have changed," he said, breathless, as if running from something unseen. "I needed to see Yuto explain." His eyes darted to Sarah, and for once, the curtain of vulnerability fell from her face, revealing an unyielding resolve. "Patrick, wait," she began softly, but I cut her off with a desperate plea for clarity. "Explain what?" I pressed. "You left things in limbo. You don't just get to waltz back in." After I bit my lip, all too aware that I still felt pulled between two realities. My emotions swirled like the storm outside, ready to break. He stepped forward, an intensity in his gaze that made it hard for me to hold my ground. "I didn't leave by choice." He faltered. I could see the weight of everything he held, burdens not only for himself, but the implications they might have for me and Sarah. Silence enveloped us, thick with tension, as the rain lashed against the windows. It was a dramatic backdrop for what felt like a fateful intersection of paths. "Just tell me the truth," I demanded, tension crackling in the air. "You owe me that much." I was forced to cut ties because of where I work. "A mistake I made seeking answers that put everyone at risk," he said, desperation spilling into urgency. "But I couldn't just forget about you. I came back to warn you. There are things happening. Someone's looking for you, too." The word struck with a force that sent ripples through my heart. "What do you mean? Who's looking for me?" "It's complicated." He turned his gaze towards Sarah, then back to me, fear twisting his features. "I wanted to protect you both, to keep you out of it. My world tilted on its axis, thoughts racing as I tried to process the implications of his revelation. Sarah, meanwhile, absorbed the weight of the moment with a solemn expression that betrayed nothing, yet I could see the veil of worry lurking behind her eyes. Yet, as my heart hammered against my ribs, a sliver of hope threaded through the dread. Maybe, just maybe, this was the chaos that would finally break the dam. The moment when fear and hope collided, forcing my heart to choose. "Why should we trust you?" Sarah interjected, her voice steady, emboldened by the turbulence swirling around us. "Because I wouldn't have come back after everything if I didn't mean it," he fired back, passion lighting his expression. "You were the reason I survived what I did. If I've come to protect you from shadows that loom over us, it's because it's tied to everything we've built together." I felt the churning emotions within me deepen. Choices lay before me like branches of a winding path, and there was no escaping the consequences of any direction I chose. The warmth of connection with Sarah, now layered with potential danger, pulsed with electric energy, forcing me to confront truths buried in the chaos of our lives. "I need to know everything," I whispered, heart racing at the magnitude of our situation. "I need to understand what you're saying." Just then, the lights flickered, and in that moment of uncertainty a crash of thunder reverberated outside, a sound that echoed the chaos brewing within. The storm outside began to match the tempest inside me as a heavy realization settled over us. This was only the beginning. Something is coming for us, he warned, the shadows of fear wrapping around us again. And we may not be ready for what it means. My pulse quickened. Had I invited a force far more powerful than I could have anticipated? Emotions swirled dangerously as the stakes were raised, setting us on a path rife with uncertainty and peril. As the rain battered against the window, I could feel the nature of our choices conflicted yet inevitable. Somewhere deep inside, my heart thudded louder than the storm. The threads of our lives had tangled irrevocably, and while the future loomed ominously ahead, one thought remained unwavering: this chaos was now ours to define. The air was heavy, thick with the tension that wrapped around us like a suffocating blanket. I could feel fear swirling in the dim light, and for a moment, the shadows danced closer, threatening to engulf us. I wanted to scream, to shatter the silence that had settled after his ominous warning, but I remained still, rooted to the floor, caught between disbelief and an overwhelming need to protect what was dear to me. Tell me more, I urged, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm, desperate for answers. Who's after us? What do they want? At that moment, Patrick's face collapsed into a mask of anguish as he raked a hand through his hair, the tension radiating around him crackling like the storm outside. They're from my past, he finally admitted, his voice trembling slightly, people I crossed paths with while looking for information that wasn't meant to be unearthed. They think you may know some of what I found. They believe you hold secrets that could harm them. Secrets? I echoed, glancing at Sarah, whose expression had morphed into one of fierce protectiveness. I don't know anything. There's nothing that ties me to what you did. I know, he said, desperation lacing his words. But someone doesn't believe that. Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady and fierce like a shield raised in battle. We can handle this. We need to stick together. If there's danger, we face it together, not apart. Her words seemed to breathe life into our chaotic heartbeats, igniting a shared determination. A wave of gratitude flooded through me, the warmth of her support a balm against the cold fear that threatened to suffocate us. Yet, beneath the surface, the dread churned like the storm outside, a constant reminder of how fragile our alliance was, how tenuous our grasp on safety truly felt. Before I could respond, the lights flickered again, casting brief shadows across the room as the storm surged outside. My heart sank as a loud crash echoed through the house. Thunder, or something more? Stay close, Patrick instructed, urgency creeping into his voice. If they're already on their way, we need a plan. And then, as if to punctuate his words, a heavy knock echoed from the front door, shattering the fragile moment of solidarity we had just forged. Time froze, staring into the dark unknown beyond the door, and suddenly the reality of our predicament pressed in, sharp and unrelenting. Who is that? I whispered, my voice barely audible. It's hard to tell, Patrick said, his eyes radiating concern. But we can't take chances. Let me check, Sarah insisted, her bravery inexplicably calming my racing heart. No, it's too dangerous, Patrick countered, but the firm resolve in Sarah's expression softened his reluctance. All right, but be careful. She nodded, moving to the window while I remained close to Patrick, the uncertainty gnawing at the edges of our instincts. All I could hear was the patter of rain against the glass, a reminder that the world outside continued to spin in reckless abandon while we stood on the precipice of chaos. With her back turned, I leaned closer to Patrick, my pulse racing. If this is related to your past, we need to know everything. There might be something in the information you uncovered that can help us understand. I wish it were so simple. He hesitated, his expression clouded with guilt and regret. I might have underestimated what I was getting into. The people I was involved with. A crash interrupted him, and Sarah's voice, competent yet laced with alarm, cut through the air as she crouched low to the floor beside the window. It's the police, she breathed in disbelief, her eyes wide. I see flashlights. My heart plummeted as despair clawed its way up from within, but there was something unsettling about a police presence in the midst of this chaos. I knew that even if the truth fell into the hands of authorities, it might not provide the safety we were desperately seeking. Are they here for us? I whispered, fear weaving its dark tapestry through the moment. I can't tell, Patrick answered, his face pale with worried eye. In that second, the shadows outside seemed to dance dangerously close to us, as if urging me to make a choice. I could hear the patter of feet outside, shuffling in the wetness of the storm, the voice of an officer carrying over the rain. "Is anyone home? We need to speak with you immediately." Panic gripped me, a tight squeeze around my lungs. There was an urgency in that voice, but what could they possibly need? As they called again, louder this time, a foul taste settled at the back of my throat. "Now what?" Sarah mouthed questioningly, turning back to us with wide eyes, her resolve morphing into tangible fear. "Whatever happens, do not open that door," Patrick said, his voice turning crisp and calculated, but my heart sank further. If the police were really here, it would complicate everything. They could unwittingly pull us into a web that we only just uncovered. As the world outside continued its frantic pulse, a sinking certainty dawned on me. We were about to face something that would forever change the fabric of our lives. Gripped by both dread and determination, I took a step back, my dreams of safety slipping away like rainwater through my fingers. I knew that embracing the storm meant confronting demons I never imagined having to face, and the possibility that love could flourish amidst chaos now felt like a cruel joke. Then, as the realization sank in, a new question arose within me: if this was just the beginning of an unraveling? One that would expose us all to the very darkness Patrick sought to protect us from. As the knock resounded again, fierce and demanding, I felt my heart teetering on the edge of an unknown precipice. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was terrifically clear: it was time to unmask the truth, and every secret would soon lay bare before us, whether we were ready or not. The tension in the room crackled like static electricity, filling the air with an electric sense of dread. I braced myself against the wall, the cold plaster a stark contrast to the sweltering heat of fear. The knocking was insistent now, an accusing finger pointing at all the secrets we hid within the walls of this home. Every word unspoken between us felt like a heavy weight, ready to plunge into the depths of despair with just a single, careless motion. "Do they really think we're hiding something?" I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I spoke the question to Patrick or to myself. Patrick's face was a tempest of conflicting emotions. "They have to be cautious. It's their job. But that doesn't mean they're here for the right reasons." His eyes flitted between Sarah and me, haunted with both frustration and fear. "If I could have just kept things quiet, this wouldn't be happening." "Kept things quiet?" Sarah snapped, her fear morphing into a fierce anger. "You put us in danger by digging up those secrets. You have to own that." Her words struck home, igniting the room with an uncomfortable heat. In that moment of heightened tension, I felt my heart race, not just from fear, but from the fierce protectiveness I felt for both of them. How had we come to this, standing on shaky ground where alliances could easily crumble under the weight of truth? I didn't think Patrick started, his voice trembling, but I could see the shame in his eyes as it battled against the ghost of defiance. "Thinking isn't enough to keep us safe anymore," I whispered, my breath catching in my throat. "We need an escape plan." Sarah's face was resolute, her features carved from determination. "Let's find a way out of here. We can't get trapped. We know the back routes. We've been through this place 100 times. I shook my head, feeling the urgency pulse through my veins. "But what if they follow us?" "Then we fight," she replied, though the tight tremor in her voice betrayed her uncertainty. Just then, the booming voice of the officer outside split the night air. "This is your last chance. Open the door now, or we will have to come in forcibly." I could almost feel the pulse of their urgency through the door, growing stronger with each heartbeat. It was as if we stood on the brink of an abyss, with only dark shadows waiting to embrace us just below the surface. A frantic idea bubbled to the forefront of my mind, a glimmer of hope dancing among the despair. "What if I went to the attic?" I said quickly, my mind racing with possibilities. "I can't get caught if they don't know I'm here." "Are you crazy?" Patrick exclaimed, panic flashing across his features. "You can't just hide out there. You'd be trapped." "I'd rather be trapped there than be caught by them." I shot back, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew it was a fracturing choice, one that could lead me into even deeper trouble. My heart thudded heavily as I considered the isolation. "Listen," Sarah said, her breath hitching as she turned to me, "if anyone can navigate that space, it's you. You know how to stay hidden. Just promise us you'll be careful." "I promise," I breathed, though uncertainty coiled in my gut like a snake, ready to strike. All right, Patrick relented, the decision weighing heavily on him. We'll buy you time. But when they break down that door, we need to act fast. The knocking intensified, rumbling like a storm about to unleash its full fury, and I hesitated, fear clawing at my resolve. I met Patrick's worried eyes, the look between us brimming with unspoken words. We'll figure this out, I said, but conviction wavered like the flickering lights overhead. In a moment of steely courage, I turned toward the attic stairs, stealing one last glance over my shoulder. With each step I climbed, I felt the weight of both hope and terror bear down upon me. How would they react if they didn't find me? Were they prepared for what awaited them in that tenuous moment of hesitation? The attic door creaked open, and a chill surged through me. The darkness welcomed me like an old friend, and I took a deepening breath. But as I settled into my hidden space, I couldn't shake the feeling that every choice led me deeper into the unknown. Suddenly, the splintering sound of breaking wood echoed through the house, accompanied by frantic voices below. I froze, heart racing, as an unexpected rush flooded my thoughts. Were the police indeed here doing their duty, or was the danger far more idiotic than I could ever imagine? As the footfalls drew closer, the sound coupled with raised voices struck unfamiliar chords deep within my heart. And then an unmistakable voice echoed from below, sending shards of ice slicing through my veins. Patrick! You can't hide forever. A surge of panic overwhelmed me, forcing me to grasp the beam for stability. My hands trembled as I realized the voice belonged to someone I had never thought I'd encounter again. It was a name I had buried deep within my past, a haunting that now crept back into my life with malicious intent. The foundation of my reality threatened to unravel before me, and at that moment, I understood. Secrets would not only uncover burdens, but they would uncover threats I never desired to face. I stilled my breath, listening intently as chaos swirled below. I had to steel myself against the darkness that beckoned, for this was only the beginning of whatever storm was looming ahead. The attic had always felt like a sanctuary, a place away from the chaos of life below. But now, cutting through the dust and forgotten relics, it felt like a tomb threatening to suffocate me. Each heartbeat pounded like a drum in my ears, echoing the dread spiraling around my thoughts. I pressed my back against the cold, rough wood, the scent of mildew and memory swirling around me. Patrick! You can't hide forever. That voice, unmistakably familiar, sliced through my reverie, sending a shiver of recognition and terror coursing down my spine. It had been years since I'd heard it, years since I'd tried to scrub it from my mind like a stubborn stain. I fought the urge to scream, to burst through the attic door and rush to Patrick's side. But I couldn't. I had come too far into this web of secrets and shadows. Footsteps thundered onto the first floor, accompanied by panicked shouts, a cacophony that amplified each strained emotion swirling within me. What do you want? I heard Patrick call, the tremor in his voice betraying his bravado. I imagined him standing at the threshold of our fragile sanctuary, a shield for Sarah and me, yet exposed in his vulnerability. I want what's rightfully mine. The voice roared back. You think you can just take from me and not face the consequences? This is just the beginning, Patrick. Confusion twisted in my belly. What did they mean by what's rightfully mine? Memories of whispered conversations long buried resurfaced, but I pushed them aside as the urgency of the moment deepened. I needed to breathe, to think clearly. The darkness of the attic was closing in, and I had to hold on to the shimmering threads of hope that lingered amidst the noise. From below, I could hear Sarah's frantic whispers, interjected with the muffled voice of an officer trying to calm the chaos. Everyone needs to take a step back. Let's figure this out without anyone getting hurt. The reality struck me like a lightning bolt. There was more at stake here than just our secrets. Lines were drawn, alliances shifted, and I was caught in the crossfire of a battle I didn't fully understand. My hands, still trembling, fidgeted with the hem of my shirt. Could we ever find safety again, or had we walked too far down this path? Suddenly, an unexpected warmth enveloped me, pulling me back from the brink of despair. A flicker of kindness, one fleeting moment in the torrent. It was Sarah's soft laughter echoing from below, breaking through the tension like sunlight scalding through opaque clouds. Remember that time we thought we could outrun the rain? she said, her voice carrying an unyielding thread of affection and nostalgia. Yes, Patrick replied, a slight crack in his voice revealing an emotion I hadn't sensed before, vulnerability mingled with remembrance. We jumped into the creek, drenched and laughing. Despite the chaos below, I felt a smile tug at my lips. In that moment, I realized that hope didn't always scream. Sometimes, it whispered, holding its ground amid feral storms. But then, the atmosphere shifted in an instant. Shouts turned into screams, breaths turned into sobs. "Get away from him!" I heard Sarah cry out in a fierce tone I had never fully witnessed before. My heart lurched. Something had gone wrong. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. I moved to the attic door, cautious but driven by the need to protect them, my bare feet silent against the wooden floor. The door creaked in protest as I gripped the handle, hesitating for just a moment. Moments in chaos are fluid, bending time into a dreamlike abstraction, but fear had a sharp clarity. I had to know what was happening. I pushed the door open just a crack, peering through the narrow gap. What I saw twisted my stomach into knots. The officer was pinned against the wall as a figure looming over him, tall, intimidating, and eerily familiar, spoke with unyielding fury. It was him. The specter of my past materialized in the unlikeliest of places, reshaping my understanding of everything I had thought was gone for good. "Patrick, you made a mistake you can't undo," he spat, his eyes burning with a rage that set my own blood on fire and yet sparked a time-buried fear within me. And then it hit me. His was not just about Patrick or our secrets anymore. There was something much deeper entwined in our history, a tangled knot that threatened to unravel any semblance of peace we had left. I was not merely a spectator to the storm. I stood at the epicenter, the previous warmth inside me battling against the icy claws of fear gripping my heart. "Stop!" I cried out, a desperate plea, but it came out strangled by uncertainty as everything hung in the balance. Their heads snapped towards the sound, eyes wide with disbelief, and I felt every ounce of composure pour out of me as their gazes locked onto mine. Time slowed as questions darted through my mind like a flock of startled birds. What would I uncover in this moment? What choices lay before us, and would I have the strength to face what was about to come? As silence stretched between us, I realized that love and danger were intimately intertwined, and the next choice I made could alter everything. The weight of their collective stares bore down on me, and in that fraught moment, time seemed to nestle itself into the folds of my very being, stretching reality into a haze of regret and longing. The familiarity of the man before me grounded me in something I had thought lost, yet his presence felt like ice wrapped in barbed wire. "Why are you here?" I managed to choke out, each syllable laced with trepidation. This was no longer just about Patrick or Sarah. This was my past colliding with my present, threatening to break everything apart like fragile glass. "I came to reclaim what's mine," he spat, the venom in his words stark and undeniable. "You made sure I'd pay for your misdeeds, didn't you?" "No." I felt my voice raise, a surge of indignation rising within me. "You don't understand. This isn't how we do things anymore." "We should let her speak," he interrupted, a broad smirk spreading across his face that twisted into something sinister. "I want to hear how you plan to spin this one." Above his shoulder, I could see Patrick, his face a mask of fury and fear, fingers twitching close to where I knew a hidden knife sat, a safety net he had always kept with him. The sight of it sent tendrils of dread creeping through me, but I felt a spark igniting behind the tangle of fear and adrenaline, a fierce need to protect my family. They were worth every struggle, every sacrifice. "Please, just let everyone go." "You don't want to hurt anyone," I pleaded, projecting a calmness I didn't possess. "We can talk this through. You don't have to make it worse." He laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the dim hallway. "Talk? You think it's that simple? Look around you." He gestured wildly at his surroundings, the shadows elongating like monsters lurking just out of reach. "In this world, actions have consequences. I have come to collect." "We didn't do this to you," yelled Patrick, his voice rising in defiance. "You were the one who decided to walk away. You left us." With each exchanged sentence, the tension twisted tighter, like a spark on the edge of a fuse, ready to ignite chaos within our fragile home. Every word reverberated in my chest, a dilapidated silence falling over the room again as if the sudden hush had swallowed the sounds of impending violence. Your family, though they remind me too much of what I lost, he hissed, his tone chilling. And now, they will know the pain I felt. Something deep inside me twisted, entwined with every desperate memory and regret. It was a mirror reflecting fears I thought were safe beneath layers of forgetting. You can't use them as leverage, I whispered, stepping forward in a deliberate act of courage, my heart hammering in my ears. You can't hold them hostage because of your past. This isn't a jail, it's our home. He scoffed, eyes narrowing dangerously. You think that's all this is about? I'm not here for some nostalgic reunion. I'm here for justice? I gasped, aghast at the self-righteousness seeping from his words. You will achieve nothing but destruction. Can't you see that? His smile faltered for just a moment, a glance of vulnerability flashing in the depths, and it pierced through my own confusion. You don't get it, do you? The anger flickered like a dying flame as he turned towards me. You think you can weather storms while pretending you didn't cause the tempest? Your life crumbles, while you push everything off on me. Just then, a scuffle, a shout broke through the tension. I turned my head in search of the source, but in that split second, he lunged forward, throwing aside the officer who had tried to intervene. Panic bubbled within me, and I reached for Patrick, my hand brushing against his arm. In that brief moment of connection, I felt a surge of determination, igniting the resolve within my heart anew. If fear and darkness were wrapped tightly around us, then it was our love that would break through. Patrick, I whispered, my voice trembling but steady, we will protect each other. Whatever it takes. But as I looked back into the stormy depths of the stranger's eyes, I knew this battle had just begun. An unknown wave of strength anchored me to this moment, but as the crescendo heightened, a shattering crack echoed from below. And then, the impossible happened, the attic window shattered, a swarm of blinding light flooding the room just as darkness surged, a plume of smoke billowing inside, blurring the line between safety and chaos. Run! Patrick shouted, pushing me toward the door, my heart in my throat as adrenaline coursed through my veins. But in the whirl of confusion, I turned just in time to see the terrifying figure of my past melting into shadows, leaving behind only the echo of his words of promise wrapped in a threat, I will return. This isn't over. The words pierced through the haze, chaining me to a truth I could scarcely comprehend. As I stumbled into the world beyond the attic's confines, leaving the destruction behind, I felt the ground shift beneath me. Whatever I thought I was protecting, whatever glimmer of hope we'd fostered, was now lurking on the edge of an even darker precipice, and as I braced against the tug of fate, I understood fear and love are just two sides of the same coin, and when that coin flips, everything changes. The world outside the attic spun around me, vibrant against the backdrop of overwhelming chaos. A penetrating smoke began to curl, invading my nostrils, while the distant wail of sirens created a dissonant symphony with my racing heart. Patrick's grip on my arm tightened as we stumbled through unfamiliar shadows, searching for the semblance of safety among the scattered remnants of our shattered lives. Keep moving, Patrick urged, his voice strained yet steady, an anchor amid the rising tide of panic. I nodded, fear curling like a serpent around my chest, squeezing tighter with every flicker of light that illuminated our escape. Behind us, I could sense the chaos building, the once still atmosphere crackling with tension. I risked a glance back just in time to see Sarah crouching low, shielding herself from the smoke pouring like a dark shroud into our haven. She locked eyes with me, and in that moment there was a silent understanding, a promise that, no matter the outcome, we would face this storm together. With every step, I felt the ground beneath us shift precariously, the weight of unresolved history bearing down. My pulse quickened as I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see him emerge from the swirling haze, a specter chasing us into the depths of our newest nightmare. What do we do now? I breathed, my voice barely escaping the confines of my throat. The question lingered between us like an uninvited guest. We find a place to regroup. Somewhere safe, Patrick replied, his brows furrowing as he scanned our surroundings. The neighborhood felt foreign, each house standing as a silent witness to our disintegration, the warmth of home now replaced with a pervasive chill. In that moment, the familiar rhythm of our lives felt so utterly distant, like echoes of laughter lost in a cavernous void. A place that once filled with joyous memories now stood tainted by uncertainty, twisting the knife of what could have been. As we trudged through smoke and remnants of memories, I felt something stirring, not just fear, but a flicker of defiance igniting within. Between us, a fragile thread of hope shimmered, woven into every shared glance and whispered encouragement. I was reminded that, even perched on the precipice of despair, there was still light to be found in each other. Suddenly, the sound of rustling branches broke through our reckoning, and instincts kicked in. My body froze, heart pounding in my chest, as a figure stepped forth from the shadows. The vibrant flash of panic surged, but as the silhouette emerged, relief flooded over me like a balm. Lila. It was John, one of our neighbors, his eyes wide with concern. I was out walking when I saw the smoke. What happened? Just a misunderstanding, I replied, feeling the weight of his concern pressing down on me. Instinctively, I leaned closer towards Patrick, feeling the warmth radiating from his body, an anchor against the chaos that had twisted our lives apart. Misunderstanding? John repeated, incredulous. This looks like more than that. Come. We need to get you away from here. He beckoned us, his genuine kindness illuminating the murky path before us, and I felt a swell of gratitude for his presence, a brightness in the dark. As we followed him without question, I glanced up at Patrick, his eyes reflecting a mixture of concern and determination. We need to figure this out, he whispered, I'll always protect you. You don't think this is over, do you? I muttered, fear creeping into my voice. The darkness of that promise was still lingering, threatening to return like the tide, erasing the ground we had fought so hard to reclaim. Not yet. His resolute answer brought a spark of courage, but I couldn't shake the unease resting heavy in my stomach. We hurried through the streets, shadows dancing around us like specters of doubt and fear. Each corner we took felt like another step deeper into the unknown, yet the bond between us grew more unbreakable, a tether drawing us closer amidst the chaos. Just as we reached the edge of the neighborhood park, the sun broke through the smoky veil, casting warm golden rays that bathed everything in a soft glow. However, even amidst the beauty, I felt the sudden refrain of dread. What we had escaped may have pulled back, but deep inside, I could feel it brewing once again. John led us to a small clearing where the trees parted, revealing a park bench, a symbol of simplicity and respite. He gestured for us to sit, his brow knitted with concern. You're safe here for now. But you need to tell me what's really happening. As we sat, I felt the burden of secrets pressing upon me like lead. The air was thick with uncertainty, and as I glanced at Patrick, a tremor of fear flickered in his eyes. It was the realization that his protective instincts were peering into a darkness that neither of us understood. With heavy breaths, I opened my mouth to share the truth, everything we had encountered and the shadow that loomed over our lives. The secrets, the pain, and the terrifying figure from my past clawing his way back to us. But the moment I began to speak, a piercing scream echoed through the park, slicing through my resolve. Heart racing, we turned towards the sound, and chaos erupted anew. In the distance, a figure emerged from the trees, silhouetted by the setting sun. They were frantic, looking back over their shoulder, before collapsing onto the grass, a moan of agony spilling from their lips. My heart sank as recognition flooded over me. It was Sarah. Lila. She called, blood staining her shirt, her eyes wide with fear. Help me. In that moment, as I felt everything within me clamor to rush to her aid, I knew our fragile semblance of hope hung in the balance once more. The world spun around me, a whirlwind of terror and despair converging into a singular, heart-stopping moment. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, a tremor that signified the chaos forming a tighter grip around us. Sarah lay there, vulnerable and wounded, her cries piercing the air like shards of glass scraping against the surface of my reality. Time stretched thin as the horror of her situation unveiled itself, tightening my chest in a vice of disbelief. Help me. She gasped, the strain evident in her voice, a fragile and desperate plea that echoed through the haze of fear wrapping us all. I was rooted to the spot, a thousand thoughts racing through my mind, while the sun dipped further behind the trees, casting long shadows that felt ominous and suffocating. Without thinking, I broke away from the bench, Sarah's pain igniting a fire in my veins. I rushed to her side, falling to my knees in the grass, urgency overwhelming me. What happened? I cried out, feeling my heart throb in synchrony with the panic in her eyes, the crimson blooming on her shirt feeding my dread. I reached for her, and instinctively, she grabbed my arm, her fingers trembling, anchoring me into the moment and her suffering. They found me, she whispered hoarsely, her voice trembling. I tried to get away, but the words fell from her lips like stones, heavy and suffocating. Suddenly, the tension thickened, the air charged with dread, and I turned to look back at Patrick who stood frozen, horror etched across his face. I could see the thoughts whirling behind his eyes, as if grappling with the realization that our pasts were colliding at an alarming speed, only to leave devastation in its wake. Rage simmered in his expression, a fury directed at the very shadow of our fears, and despite my heart racing with terror, I felt the warmth of his support as he moved closer. Stay with me, I urged, my voice steady but soft, crafting a safe haven amid the chaos swirling around us. I pressed my blood-slicked fingers to her wound, panic threatening to overtake me as I struggled to assess the gravity of our situation. We're going to get you help. You're going to be okay. Lila, it's too dangerous here, Patrick warned, his jaw tight with urgency. We need to move. But as the words left his mouth, the world vibrated with another ominous presence. He was coming, the figure from my past, looming like a dark cloud ready to burst. No, I protested softly, glancing at Sarah, feeling the weight of shared history buckle beneath us. If he's out there, he'll find her. He's not going to just let her go. I didn't care about the looming threat anymore. Fierce determination blazed in my chest as I knelt beside Sarah, the urgency morphing into unyielding resolve. But then, just as the shadows threatened to overpower us, John, my neighbor, the unexpected beacon of hope, emerged from the tree line, urgency shadowing his usually calm demeanor. He rushed over, and together we formed a protective barrier around Sarah, my heart filled with fervor knowing we would fight for her safety against the growing tide of darkness. Help me hold her, John instructed, kneeling beside us and efficiently applying pressure to Sarah's wound, his expression a tapestry of determination. We need to make sure she's stable until we can get her to a hospital. As he worked to help Sarah, I felt the ground tremble as another presence entered our midst. The air felt charged, thick with the acrid smell of smoke and danger. I could feel my heart pounding like a war drum, the fight igniting within me as I turned to look at Patrick. Stay close to her, he commanded, positioning himself between us and the encroaching shadows. I'll hold him off. Get Sarah to safety. His voice rang with urgency, fierce and steadfast like an unyielding mountain. And then, just as the chaos swelled unbearable around us, I caught a glimpse of the figure breaking through the underbrush, a twisted reflection of familiarity and menace. Sarah. The figure shouted, a flicker of recognition battling with the darkness in my heart. You can't keep hiding from me. The voice sent chills down my spine, and instinctively, I let fury guide my next move. Do not touch her, I yelled, fury surging through me like wildfire as adrenaline propelled me forward. With every ounce of strength, I stepped into the line of fire, standing shoulder to shoulder with Patrick and John, shielding Sarah as much as I could. You'll have to go through us, is that so? He smirked, his eyes glinting like shards of broken glass. A thread of nostalgia mingled with revulsion curled in the pit of my stomach. This was the person I had wrestled with in nightmares, memories that had come creeping out of the shadows. And yet, as he approached, something shifted within me, a flicker of clarity amid the swirling chaos. He wasn't impenetrable, not anymore. I took a steadying breath, each pulse in my heart echoing conviction into the air. You think fear gives you power? You're wrong. We aren't afraid anymore. You're just a ghost from our past. But before I could react further, a sudden eruption of sound pierced through the clearing, the sharp crack of thunder, the caustic scent of danger looming heavily. I felt Patrick shift beside me, eyes narrowing. We won't let you harm anyone. The figure did not respond directly to us. Instead, his gaze shifted over my shoulder, and I immediately felt the tremors of his despair vibrating through the air. But what I also sensed beneath that despair was desperation, a yearning that couldn't fully quell his rage. In that moment, the lines were drawn deeper. We were not merely fighting for ourselves but for a collective future forged in connection. Leave. I shouted, summoning every ounce of bravery from within as I gestured toward the shrinking sunlight. You have no power here, and then, with that rallying cry of defiance, something remarkable happened. A spark ignited, swirling within our united front. The fire of resilience ignited as Patrick, John, and I stood tall against the oncoming storm. The shadows that had long haunted us flickered, uncertainty creeping through. A moment of silence, a pause before the tide would shift. The past doesn't own us, I declared, my voice reverberating across the clearing, a flame illuminating the darkness that had once consumed us for too long. This time, we choose hope, love, and resilience. A shadow of uncertainty flickered across the figure's face, the veil of violence hanging loose as he hesitated. For an instant, just a brief, fragile moment, I saw a crack in his armor. Perhaps he too had battles to fight, specters haunting him, threads intertwining our fates more tightly than we dared to dream. I held my breath, hoping that this moment of vulnerability could shift the trajectory we were all on, but that flicker dissipated as quickly as it had come. You don't know what you're meddling with, he yelled, his voice breaking through my fragile hopes. You think you're stronger? You think you can just walk away unscathed? Then, in a flash of reckless abandon, he lunged forward. But dread didn't invade my heart. I felt electricity crackle, and amid the looming shadows threatening to engulf us, love intertwined with strength surged, each heartbeat eking out courage. Together, I shouted, and with that rallying cry, we faced him head-on, determined to fight not just for ourselves, but for everything we had come to cherish, the hope of a future free from the shadows of our pasts. The confrontation unfolded like a storm brewing across the horizon, and the world tipped dangerously as we surged forward. It was more than a battle for survival. It was a testament of resilience laced with the promise of a brighter tomorrow. And as Sarah's fingers curled around mine, infused with warmth, steadfastness, and an unwavering bond as solid as the ground beneath us, I finally felt the winds of change breathe through our lives, a gust that would rise from moments of darkness to wrap us in the light of love and connection. With every ounce of our strength, we would not only fight our fears, together, we would reclaim our future. No one gets left behind, I cried, a fierce chant resonating as we stood side by side, three determined souls against the storm, ready to embrace our truth and emerge unwavering into the dawn. Sometimes the most powerful resolutions come wrapped in chaos as memories collide with reality. Love ignites as a force of nature, rewriting destinies into the tapestry of our lives. And I felt it then, the truth of our journey and the clarity illuminating my heart, leaving me stilled, ready to embrace the dawning light that lay ahead. And that's when I knew, against all odds, we would rise.